We've killed plants. We've wasted money. We've built things twice, maybe 3 times. We've cried. We've screamed. We've questioned our sanity. And somehow we still think everyone should start a homestead. Welcome to Womenfolk Revival, where we are deeply rooted and wildly intentional. I'm Maggie.
And I'm Mira. And this is what makes this conversation fun because neither one of us is coming at this like we've figured it all out, right? Like we've learned a lot, but we've also done plenty of things the hard way. And this conversation to me is bigger than homesteading because I don't think that women out there are watching those videos and secretly going, I want acres and a red barn tomorrow. I think what we're all really thinking is, I want to feel like that. And that's how I was feeling when I first started out doing this.
Hmm. Yeah, you know, you don't just decide to become a homesteader necessarily. Something just kind of arises inside of you, where you think, you know, instead of buying bread, let's grow wheat. You just have this strange, sudden urge, just to slightly step away. And then all of a sudden, you know, let's go homestead. But it's always some weird, random thing that gets in our mind. It would be so much easier if we could just walk outside and pick apples off of a tree instead of going to the store and picking out good ones versus bad ones and wondering what it's contaminated with, wondering if it's, been messed with genetically.
Yeah, for me in the beginning, I've always felt that connection back to a slower paced life growing up. But I was so caught up in the mix of rushing and everyday life and how society had us living that I was like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I wasn't chasing after the acreage and the barns and all of that. I was really trying to just obtain that peace and slower mornings and, dinners that aren't so rushed through. And um, so basically, I feel like what we're all trying to run after is that feeling of being able to connect with something that's real again, because honestly, everything happens on screens now. And, you know, uh, it's just everything's screens. We buy groceries online, screen. We scroll constantly. We answer messages. We watch TV on them.
We do this
And
podcast.
we do. But this is different than, like doom scrolling or trying to find
Sure.
that quick addiction for 5 seconds. This is like a lifestyle change that we're doing together and trying to build with other women. And when we do all of those doom scrolling things, we're trying to figure out like why do we feel so disconnected? Um I just
I think you can, I think there's ways around that. I will get on Instagram and I, for the most part, only follow people who live this type of lifestyle or, your doctors who have turned to more of a natural and holistic path. And I learn a lot from it and I feel more empowered after scrolling through my Instagram because I'm like, oh yes, I'll see someone doing something out in the garden and be like, oh yes, I need to do that. Or, oh, I can do it this way, which looks like it's better than the way I've been doing it. Or I can find out different things about my health, stop doing this now because it's the worst thing that you can be doing. Okay, I'll stop it now. So I don't get off feeling, depleted or defeated. I get off thinking, okay, let's do this. Let's start doing this. Let's stop doing this. And
yeah. You have changed the way of doom scrolling, though. You're doing it for a purpose, right? And that's why I think things like going back to learning how to garden or baking bread or growing flowers and making dinner and things like that are calling to us because you can touch them and you can smell them. And Yeah, she's screaming. Uh,
Super loud, yeah.
you can watch something change as you do it because you showed up constantly in that moment. And that is so satisfying seeing something that you've grown and now being able to eat that. You did that. You made that change well through our creator,
Yes,
but you know, uh
yes. And like you said, they're our creator, but getting back to eating the foods that he intended for us to eat. You know, I you know, I hear a lot is I guess mainly through Christianity that, their reasoning for eating pork and shellfish and all these other things is that um, the sin was taken away from it. And sure, that might be true, that might have happened, but it's still not doing anything good for your health.
I don't know if you felt this as well, Maggie, but I think we're all as women just exhausted, not only physically but mentally and emotionally. And I know we bring this up time and time again in our episodes, but we're constantly consuming that information and people are telling us what to buy, how to be parents, how to decorate, organize, so on and so forth. And we've managed to turn everything, including rest, into something that we're trying to master. And that's why the slower life just feels so refreshing because it reminds us that we don't have to make every second of the day be about something. Sometimes just watering the flowers is enough, or making dinner, which can be kind of hectic, or, watching the sunset. And that can just be a good day. Just the other day, my husband and I were sitting here and he was like, "Today I'm not doing anything. Yesterday was so jam packed. Today I'm just going to sit and rest." And it was actually a really nice day. We just sat and talked to each other, and it was pretty rare. But it was nice. We really enjoyed it.
Well, and that's one great thing about, what's the word I'm looking for? Keeping the Sabbath. We are supposed to have one day of rest, and that's why. Because we're not built to go, go, go. We're
Yeah.
built to work hard, but then to have that time of rest.
Yeah.
It's
Uh
again, we're constantly going away from what our creator put in place for us,
mhm,
his laws. And we're
yeah.
going back to what man and society say that we should do and how we should do things.
Mhm.
It's, and anyone should be able to stop and look around and see, hey, this has not been doing us any good. Sure,
Yeah.
there's conveniences and there's, you know, yeah, it's great to have that ice cream cone and that fast food meal but it's destroying your body and it's destroying your mind. It's destroying your soul little by little.
It is. I think homesteading is also very can be intimidating. I think
Yeah.
that we can take something that's so simple yet beautiful and turn it into another thing that we feel like we have to accomplish. For example, homemade bread. We'll see someone making it and suddenly think, "Okay, I'm gonna learn how to do sourdough, or harvesting vegetables, and I should grow all my food, or collecting eggs. Oh my god, I need chickens." And someone hanging laundry outside too, and before we know it, now
That's
we're
dreamy.
turning someone else's peaceful life that they're living and creating it as a to-do list instead of asking, "Does this really fit my lifestyle right now?" Because we want chickens. I'm like, "We need to have chickens, but it just doesn't fit right now." So, I think what a lot of people are doing with learning how to homestead is, "How fast can I learn this?" And those are 2 completely different questions, and I can
Yes.
laugh now because I've been trying to do sourdough for years, literally, like, when we first reconnected, I was trying to do it, and I got to the point where I was like, "Okay, I understand this," and then I figured out my starter, figured out how to feed it, and the timing, and then somehow, I don't know what happened, and I haven't touched it since.
Yeah. And that's the problem too when you rush into something is that, one thing goes wrong and all of a sudden you're double intimidated and
Mhm.
it takes forever to get back into it.
It does.
And let me just say, homesteading is exhausting in ways.
Mhm.
You do, it's a lot of hard work. There is there is that emotional exhaustion. Um, going over your to-do list. Did I water all my plants? Did I put my chickens away? Did I lock the gate? Did I do this? Did I do that? And that can be overwhelming in itself. And then
Mhm.
there's the grieving. There's a lot of grieving that comes along with it. Animals die, plants die.
Yeah.
Even, somebody like me, I'm upset every time I get stung, not because I'm in pain, but that's one more bee that has just died. And we need bees.
Yeah.
And when I see, those beneficial insects, if I see them dead you know, that bothers me. That weighs on me. Um, but I'd rather be exhausted building a life than being exhausted from trying to escape one,
Yeah.
or being
Yeah.
exhausted from one that's just bringing me down and taking me away from the natural world that was given to
You're supposed to
us.
be in. Yeah, and that's just
Yeah,
how life is sometimes, when we finally feel like we have something figured out, life changes, like our schedules or the weather or even our starter. Uh, something changes, and I've realized that that's actually a good thing because it reminds us that it's not about becoming an expert, especially overnight. It's about enjoying the process of learning, which I never was doing in the beginning. I
and
don't
failure is a
need to
great
be
way to learn.
It is. And I don't need to be the world's best sourdough baker. I just want to enjoy baking bread for our family because my family are bread eaters. And my husband
Too.
keeps saying we just need to get back into baking bread. And I'm just looking at him thinking, well, if only you knew how easy that was. Like you make this bread. Um, but it's just about slowing down and returning
Mhm.
to the process and, you know, just taking the time and okay, I'll figure it out. And it's okay if it doesn't work.
It is
Yeah.
okay. And it's okay too when you're met with the reality of yourself and who you are, because homesteading exposes all of your personality flaws.
Hmm.
It's right there for you to see, but that's okay because you're going to grow from it.
Yeah.
Um, for me, I'm not a great finisher of projects. I'm not. I start, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do know I will start something and everything will be going right. The weather will be good. The kids will be, finding all kinds of outdoor play and things to do. And, my husband's busy doing something and not having any issues. And I can just have that time you know, to create something and to finish it. Um,
Yeah.
and I buy a lot of seeds and I don't plant them. I do. And I still do it to this day. And my husband was like, hey, he was like, you do a lot of planning and you do a lot of researching. You don't
But you
do
don't follow through.
enough doing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're so right. Ouch. That,
Totally.
the thing that bothers me most is just having to be told those things. Like, wow, why didn't I realize that? But it was so true. You know, and then you just grow because it's just life. You're not
Mhm.
performing for anybody.
Mhm.
You're just
You're
living life.
you're
You
doing
fall
what
down, you grow.
you're doing what works for you and you're figuring out as you go along. I have a perfect story of a picture of who I am. So last fall we had this pumpkin sitting outside. It was a white pumpkin and it started to go bad. Well, we didn't want flies on the house, so we decided to just kind of put it off to the side, like as soon as you walk out on our porch, we just kind of have like a rose bush area. And I'm like, I'm just going to sit it here and it can it can compost with the rest of everything, not realizing, hey, there's seeds in there. And so I literally just put it outside my porch. And I guess that was the entire garden strategy for me because I wasn't trying to like plant pumpkins or, research soil. I just wanted it out of my house. Well, months later, now here's this giant vine growing outside my door, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, what could this possibly be? And my husband was like, oh, remember that white pumpkin? And I'm like, huh. Like I had not even planned for it. So now I have this huge pumpkin vine growing right outside our door. And every time I walk outside, I just chuckle because I think of all the things I carefully planned, researched, worried about. And then the one thing I accidentally did here is thriving right outside my door. And life is kind of like that. Things, sometimes the things that we're forcing don't grow, but the things that we just release do.
Yeah.
So I thought that was
I
pretty interesting.
it is interesting. And there's a lot of areas that we work very hard on that, and some of them are doing really well, others are not doing so well. And then I am a so some weeds are like really great to have in your garden, right? I'm not a big weeder. But we've got like dandelions popping up, and that's great because those bring up nutrients from down below. And my husband is slowly, coming around to that, but he's like, there's all these weeds. You need to get out there and weed. And I'm like, well, this one's okay. This one's beneficial. That one's going to do well. He was like, what about all this other stuff? And I was like, well, I'm really not sure, to be honest. Um, and he's like, you got to get on this or everything's going to die. Well, this one new garden area I have, everything is thriving and it's beautiful and it's doing lovely. Even though there's all these like little weeds, mixed in. But then we've got other gardens that have been totally overrun with weeds and not really, our broccoli is not doing anything, our cabbage is not doing anything. But the radishes have grown tall and gone to seed, and I've got a ton of seeds for radishes. So neat things can
Yeah.
happen when you
Yeah.
neglect something.
Like my bean plants I planted way too early and you're like, that's
They're
just way
probably
too
not gonna make
soon.
it. Yeah.
And they were thriving. And then my cucumbers I planted and I had to move from what I started them in as a seed starter, not realizing I should have done a direct sow with those. It's so tall now, it's above my trellis, and we already have one cucumber from it. So I love watching nature because nature is never anxious, right? So you don't plant a seed and it sits underground going, I wonder if I'm behind schedule? And like trees, they don't compare themselves to other trees, and flowers obviously don't bloom all at once. Everything
Yeah.
has its own timing, and we forget that because we're constantly comparing ourselves as humans to other humans. We compare ourselves to homes, we compare ourselves to marriages, parenting, our own bodies, even our own
Yeah.
gardens, and our own hobbies. So it's like we're always measuring ourselves against someone else's highlighted reel on TikTok or, social media. And that's where social media gets kind of tricky because it only shows the moment that everything has worked. The beautiful loaf bread, the spotless kitchen, the overflowing
Yep.
harvest
It doesn't show
harvest
you the
basket.
mess and the struggle beforehand.
Yes, and those are the real moments. And I'm not saying that those are fake. They're all beautiful, but they don't tell the whole story, and that
Mhm.
intimidates a lot of people because when they start something and the first time it doesn't happen, we don't see the failed bread or the bugs in the garden or the quote unquote weeds that might be good for the garden, and the money that we've spent trying to learn these things and our mistakes and crying or sobbing because something has hasn't come out of the garden.
Yes.
Um so, you know, everybody has this. All the people that have these perfect reels and pictures and stuff like that. That's not the whole picture of their life. Yeah.
Especially those lovely ladies that dress in white linen and go collect chicken eggs and, everything. It's like, who's cleaning the diarrhea out of those chicken waters? Someone's doing it. It's got to be done. You're not doing it in a
Right.
white linen dress.
That's true. And actually, where we are with chickens, we want chickens. We've wanted chickens for the last 3 years. But we also have learned enough over the years, following a bunch of Facebook groups, thanks to them, that we know wanting something isn't the same as being ready for it,
Being
with
ready for
people
it.
sticking their chicken in buckets of sitz baths because they have prolapsed anuses, and then they have parasites and, blood and gory and lashed eggs and all of this. And my husband's like, so it sounds nice. I'm like, yeah, and I'm going to be doing all the work. So let me put in all the research. No. So instead of rushing, we're researching, we're asking questions, we're learning the breeds that fit our family best, how to care for them, how to keep them healthy, what to add to their diet, what mistakes people wish they had avoided, because honestly, that makes me more excited being prepared, so that when we finally do get these chickens, that we'll actually be able to enjoy it and be able to be prepared for something before it happens, instead
Yeah.
of feeling overwhelmed. Now, you can't prepare for everything. Things are going to happen. You're going to walk out and find a dead chicken here and there, and other
And
things are going to happen, but at
and
least you won't be so
nature
overwhelmed.
nature will happen, all of a sudden
It will.
everything will be going great, and then there's this vicious storm that comes through, and your whole garden's wiped out, or
Yeah,
there's a terrible drought. These things happen.
they do.
So,
And
you
there's
can
a
always
reason.
be prepared for everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think people hear the word slow living and they picture something like doing absolutely nothing, just sitting there.
Sitting on
But
a front porch drinking tea.
oh yes, but that's not what it actually requires a lot of intention, slow living, because you're constantly asking yourself, okay, does this matter? Is this adding peace to my life? Is it helping my family? Or am I just doing this because it's a trend and everybody else wants to do this? And I think that's one of the hardest questions that we can ask ourselves.
And it has become trendy, and for good reason, because people are waking up
Could be.
realizing that the system is not good for them, and the system is fragile, and they can take it away from us at any moment. So the more that we can learn and know how to do, stop buying fruit from the store that doesn't have seeds in it. They're supposed to have seeds. If
Yeah,
there are
they
no
are.
seeds, then we can't regrow the food, and then they control us one more way, because they have all the food.
One seedless apple at a time. No, just kidding.
It's true, Mira.
It
It's
is true,
true.
but you have to watch how understanding these trends can be. Okay, it sounds good, and it's something you want to do. And if it's something that you've been wanting to do for the longest time, that's great. But you don't want to start chasing something that in the end you actually realize wasn't even your dream, because then it's going to be like, well, this isn't what I wanted. And then they're going to resort back to the system. So you
Not
kind of,
necessarily. Not
but,
necessarily.
well, I'm not saying that
Everyone,
it's going to
regardless of what
happen.
your dream is, everyone should know how to grow food. Everyone should know how to make food. You know,
Yes, I agree with you
you
100%.
have
But
to
what I'm
know
getting
how
at,
to live.
yes, but there's those people that are like, oh, yeah, this is what I want to do because it looks trendy and that's what everyone's doing, but not understand that it's a life choice that you're making. It's not like a diet where you go on it real quick, get your fix, and then you're not doing it anymore. Like this is a life change. And there are some people that, like you just said, I agree 100%. It's not always true, but there are those people that are just so zoned in on, okay, it's a trend, it's happening now, okay, it's not happening anymore. Yeah, we didn't want to do that anyway. So it's like they didn't have that, they weren't able to understand it enough to the point where it's like, oh, we really do want to do this. You know what I'm saying? They're just doing it because it was a trend. And maybe that's what I'm hoping some people are listening and hearing today is, you don't have to recreate someone else's life or move to the country or have your own chickens or bake that sourdough bread I really want to bake so bad. You don't have to grow your own food. Those are wonderful, if that's what you're called to do, but that's not always what makes a meaningful life for some people. So your version
No,
of
sure. And I do see that. And I think your idea of that, it's very true, but I think it works best in a community setting where you have neighbors that grow food, and then you have neighbors that bake bread. You have neighbors that that are mechanics. You have neighbors that are carpenters, and you all work together to create a nice, beautiful,
Network
natural life. And
and
yes,
community. Hmm. Yeah. Your version of slow is going to be completely different of mine. Maybe yours.
make it work for you. You know,
Hmm.
don't take what you see and try and imitate it. Take what you see and be like, how could I implement this in my life? Could I implement this in my life? And figure
Hmm.
out, a way of doing that. That way you're building something.
Yeah.
You're building
Yeah.
skills and know-how. And, if the system does fall apart, you're not you're not at the bottom level. You're
Hmm.
somewhere where you can at least make it work.
Yes. And as we always say, start slow. Like maybe it's your slow is taking a walk after work or putting your phone in the house while your kids are playing outside or reading instead of scrolling or planting flowers instead of vegetables because vegetables you're anticipating those vegetables where sometimes when you just throw flower seeds flowers just grow, so those little moments matter more than we realize.
Yeah, grow lots of different things. My husband will be like, "What does that do for us? Where are you putting that?" And I'm like, "Well, it's gonna bring pollinators to the yard,
Yeah.
and we need our food to be, pollinated."
Mm. Yeah.
And, "Where are you growing that? What's that gonna do?" "Well, this is a grain, is it enough to, survive on?" I'm like, "No, but it's something that I can add to the grains that we already have that will, bring new, like, different minerals that aren't in this grain, you know?"
Hmm.
So he's very purposeful, like, "What does this do? What does this do?" Um,
Yeah.
the miraculous thing is that plants and fruits and vegetables, all of it, they all do a million different things, their food, their medicine, they're, good for the pollinators, they're good for the ecosystem, they're good for the dirt, but they're all good for your soul.
They are. And
So
the
just
more
start
we have these,
growing.
just start growing. That's all you can do. And even if you don't know what they do, just throw some seeds on the ground and you might get inspired by what comes up.
And my goodness, if you fail, it's okay. We fail all the time,
Yeah.
all the
That's how you
time.
learn.
But you
Hmm.
do learn and it gets better. And then you can start seeing, like, oh, we'll be here next year. We'll be here next year. And then it becomes, okay. And it becomes slower and less intimidating and less
Yeah.
exhausting because you've already been through enough seasons of it that you can kind of get a handle on its growth and on your growth.
Mm. Yeah. The more we have these discussions, the more I'm realizing that women are not looking for perfection. We're looking for permission, to slow down and not have to have everything out figured out and to start small and enjoy the season that you're in instead of wishing we were somewhere else. So, if you're
And
listening
to
today,
live, oh,
go ahead.
no, go
To
ahead.
live? No, say it.
And yeah, and just to live and be what we were meant to be. Even if you're not a wife, even if you're not a mother, you are a woman. And there are natural ways that women are supposed to be, and that's all been ripped from us. So be the woman that God made you and let that shine. It's beautiful and it's healthy and it's what's meant to be.
Yeah, I love it. If you're listening today, we hope that you hear this. Maybe you're not actually craving a different house. Maybe you're not craving more land. Maybe you're not even craving a completely different life. Maybe you're just craving a deeper connection with the life that you already have. And don't let slow living become another standard you think that you have to meet. Don't let it become another thing you feel behind on. Start where you are, use what you have, plant one flower, try to bake one loaf, take one walk. Never going to get over that. Sit outside for 10 extra minutes, call someone you love, eat dinner around the table, watch a sunset, because those little choices are what builds a meaningful life. And it's not overnight, not in a giant transformation, but just one ordinary day at a time. And honestly, we think that's the beauty of it. Next week, we're talking about something we are really excited about:
Mm.
how women were created to create. We think it's a conversation every woman needs to hear, and we cannot wait to dive into it with you. If today's conversation encouraged you, we'd love if you'd share this episode with a friend and let us know what your version of slow living looks like on our Facebook community page. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, we
Until
would.
then,
Stay rooted and stay wild.
stay wild.